Some great police work there. Now, in 2017, when Hampshire police were searching rural outbuildings for stolen goods, they came across something completely unexpected. The body of an unidentifiable man. The next few years saw an investigation which took on many twists and turns as police tried to discover just who he was. I'm with Serious Crime Review Officer Doug Utting now. Hello, Doug. Thank you and welcome to the show. It's a fascinating case.
Yes.
Just tell us, how was this body found?
So officers were looking for stolen property in remote rural areas near Winchester, and they came to a site known locally as Burrowdown Farm, which is a site that hasn't been used as a farm for over 50 years. It's completely overgrown. And in one of the buildings there is where they found the body of the man.
OK, and we just see that building here, as you say, completely overgrown, hadn't been used for many, many years. So just talk us through on a map where this actually occurred, Doug.
Yeah, so this is right in the middle of Hampshire, not far from the city of Winchester, and close to a smaller village of Micheldever, which you can see just in the bottom left of the graphic there.
OK, so a body was found, but you just didn't know who it was. So how was the investigation? What happened then?
So the body was found with a number of personal possessions, and everything seemed to point to the fact that this person had been living rough. Okay. We had a post-mortem investigation, but that was inconclusive. The cause of death couldn't be determined, primarily because of the age of the body. It's just being treated as what we call a non-suspicious death. There's nothing to suggest there'd been a crime involved.
So from that point then, when you had the post-mortem, you still didn't know what really had happened or who this person was. What did you then do? Because you took it up a level, didn't you?
We did indeed. And one of the things we did was to go to the public locally at the time, and we commissioned an expert to do us a reconstruction of what this gentleman might have looked like based on the data from the body. OK, so you went to Dr. Chris Rinn, who's an expert in this field, and he and his team have created this image. Talk us through what's happening here. Yeah, so I think Dr. Rinn here is using the data from the skull and using the measurements within the science and has created an image. And this is an image that we later were able to enhance by some witnesses that we later located.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very, very clear image, that. So you put this out, you did identify some witnesses that came forward as part of your investigation, and they could be crucial to the whole investigation themselves. Tell us about that.
Well, we're certainly hoping so. As a result of the initial publicity and the release of the image, some witnesses came forward from a small village not far from where the body was found, in a place called Itchenstoke, again in the middle of Hampshire, very rural.
We can just see that here, and as you say, it really isn't that far at all from the discovery that happened a few years later. So what did these witnesses see?
So they talk of a gentleman who sounded as if he was French. He had a French accent. He said to them he was from France and that he was walking through England, making his way over towards Ireland. And that he clearly had items with him, like a tent and some other possessions, and he was living in the outdoors. And he actually asked them if he could camp in their garden for the evening, and they agreed to that. And they spent some time with him, got to know a little bit about him, and observed some things about him that perhaps were significant.
OK. And you did some DNA testing as well, both here and internationally?
Yeah. DNA was taken as a matter of course, but sadly we've not been able to match that with anything in any of the UK databases, either criminally or on the missing persons database. And so that DNA profile has been sent overseas via Interpol to European databases. But again, sadly, at this time, we've had no hits.
OK, and that would suggest, obviously, that the person has not been arrested in the past. OK, so how can the public help you today?
Well, because of what the witnesses were able to tell us, as I said, we think this man may well have been French or very closely connected with that country. He was a smoker. He was someone...
so we've already said connections to France. You've already said lived rough. You've just mentioned as a smoker. And this possible military background, possibly.
Yeah, that comes because one of the witnesses was himself an ex-military man and had a conversation with the gentleman who said he had been in the French military.
So any names for who this person could be crucial on this investigation. Doug, thank you. Thank you for joining us. I should say we're going to keep this image on our website. So if you have any ideas on who he might be, please do get in touch.
Morning. Raf.
Now, in 1994, the body of a man was discovered by police in the sea off the German coast. Now, despite their best efforts, They have never been able to identify him, so the charity Locate International have picked up the case and are asking for your help in their investigation. And I'm joined now by co-founder and ex-officer Dave Grimstead. Thank you for joining us, Dave. Now, Locate International normally look for missing persons, but this is unique because you don't actually know the identity of this individual. How did you become involved?
And this is unique. We've got a murder investigation without the name of the person. And we were contacted by the original detective in the case who started on this case back in 1994, who recognised that through the international cold case project that we're working on, that with the strong connections to the UK, there might be the chance to solve this case.
Well, let's hope so. So how did the officers initially try and identify him?
So back in 1994, we were in the early days of DNA. So they managed to obtain mitochondrial DNA. They used that to eliminate against the database of missing persons. But crucially now, they've got a full DNA profile that we're able to utilise to try and find out who this person is. But so far, there's been no trace on any international databases. So now it's about appealing to the public. And there's some really unusual things about this case, particularly with his height and his clothing. So
what's different about his height?
So he's 6'5".
OK.
That puts him in the top 1%, 99 percentile of
So that
height.
in itself is quite distinctive, isn't it? And you say about his clothing, we're going to have a look at some of that now. Talk me through the clothing and what's significant about it.
What's significant about the clothing, and it's really interesting when you look at the church's loafers that are there. These are expensive shoes. So these are in the region of about £300 upwards when they're bought new. But what was interesting about these shoes is they're repaired as well. So they're made in Northampton. We know they came from the UK, and we know that they had what wasn't a great repair to them. So we've got expensive shoes with a repair that wasn't that great, and an ITS Jubilee stylised heel replacement.
OK, that's interesting about the shoes. And just next to it, we can see a tie there. What have you learnt from that?
And the tie was really interesting. When we first looked at it, you had the diagonal pattern. It looked like a regimental type of tie. But when we looked and analysed the labels in this case, it was from Marks and Spencer's. And we know that from the coding on the labels that we're looking for our man that was found in the North Sea to have been in the UK, certainly in the early 1990s, judging by the dates and the analysis of the labels.
Definitely. And next to it, we can see an image there. Tell me about that, because it looks very, very clear.
Yeah, so the technology and the expertise for facial reconstruction has moved on since 1994. So we were able to work with experts at the University of Dundee to get a new facial reconstruction, to get this as close as we can to, and the images that you can see there, and what we think North Sea man looked like. And
extraordinary level of detail there on the picture on the right. It really is. So how do you think this person may have ended up in the stretch of water?
We know that our man from the North Sea had a violent blow to the head and to the ribs. He was weighted down by 2 iron cobbler's feet that we think originated. They were stamped with AJK from Kingswood. They were tied to his belt. And we think, looking at the where he was found, that this is one of the busiest waterways in the approach to Hamburg, that maybe he came from a ship 10, maybe more days before that.
OK, well, we know you're treating it as a murder investigation right now. We're asking you to cast your minds back. And Michelle, you've got some tips how we may be able to do just that.
Yeah, absolutely. In the hope to get information which could identify this man, Locate International are working alongside Professor Fiona Gabbett from Goldsmiths University, who created a memory jog. And Fiona joins us now. Fiona, really good to have you with us. So first of all, just explain exactly what a memory jog is and how it works.
Yeah, so memory jogging's a clever and effective way to mentally take someone back to a time and a place with the goal of helping them remember something or someone that they've previously forgotten. And in this case, obviously, we're trying to jog people's memory for whether they might have known the gentleman many years ago. So my students and I have been working alongside Dave and his team at Locate International for the past year, pulling together key information we have about the gentleman, as well as key events that took place around that time that we believe he was murdered. And from this, we came up with 2 ways that we believe can help jog people's memory. So the first is to focus on distinctive information about the man himself, as Dave mentioned, his height and his expensive shoes. And the second is to focus on key events that happened around that period of time, such as big news stories or popular songs from the early 1990s. And by focusing on these key features, we can help people remember back to a particular time that in turn will help them remember where they were at the time and crucially who they might have known at that time.
So, as you said, focusing on key events is something that could really help. And with this case, it's looking at 1993 and 1994. We can see some of the events from 1993 that might help jog someone's memory. Pablo Escobar was killed. There were the first new images from the Hubble telescope. And in 1994, we can have a look at them as well. The IRA bombings, of course, at Heathrow. 4 weddings and a funeral was released. So it's really going back, thinking of what was there at the time. And hopefully, Fiona, that'll activate people's memories.
Yep, that's exactly right. So we're asking members of the public who can remember back to the early 1990s to spend some time thinking about these key events and popular films and songs that happened at the end of 93 and the first 6 months of 94, because activating memories from a particular period of time can help you remember more information about what you personally were doing at that time. So please take a couple of minutes to think about these events and then use them to jog your memory to think about where you were and also who you knew at that time. Does anyone remember someone who matches the description of the gentleman? And if you're too young to remember the 1990s, then maybe you can ask your parents or your grandparents to try this task. And hopefully someone will find the man that we're looking for.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Fiona, thanks very much again for being with us. So do you have any clues as to who this man might be? Do you recognise this face or the expensive shoes or the tie? If you have any information to share, the contact details are on your screens now.
November 2006. The body of a woman was discovered on Port Logan Beach in Dumfries and Galloway. Police Scotland have been working to identify her, and we're joined now by Dr Maureen Taylor, co-director of the Scottish Cold Case Unit. Maureen, good morning. What can you tell us about this case?
Good morning. So yes, on the 22nd of November 2006, the woman was discovered at the high tide line on the beach at Port Logan in Dumfries and Galloway in southwest Scotland. And it's believed that she may have been in the water for around 6 months prior to her being found. So we're working with Police Scotland and Locate International, trying to find her identity and hopefully repatriate her with any family that she may have.
Now, you provided us with a facial reconstruction we can see now of what you believe she may have looked like. What do we know about her so far?
So we know that when she was discovered, she was noted as being of thin build and between 4'11" and 5'4" in height. And she also didn't have any teeth, although we don't know if that tooth loss was ante-mortem or post-mortem. So we believe there's a possibility she may have worn dentures in life. The results of the post-mortem also suggest that she was between 30 and 50 years of age.
OK, now, you mentioned that she was possibly in the water for quite a long time. What's significant about exactly where she was found?
Yeah, so as you say, when she was found in 2006, the post-mortem determined that she'd likely been in the water for around 6 months. So it's important for us to try and determine where she may have entered the water. So we consulted with an expert in drift trajectories, and he was able to track back the tides, the weather and the current for the 6 months prior to her being found. And this then led to suggestions that she may have entered the water around Dublin.
That's very, very interesting. And you have another possibility that she may have even come from a sea vessel and ended up on the beach.
Yeah, so we can't be sure exactly how she's entered the water. So she may have come from the land, but equally she could have come from a sea vessel. So she may have jumped or fallen from a boat or a ship. And she could have also equally come from anywhere else in the UK and just been travelling to or visiting Ireland. Now, the clothing she was wearing would suggest that she has at least visited or lived in the UK or Ireland. But of course, you know, she could be someone who led a transient lifestyle or simply become estranged from family and friends, which is why she's remained unidentified.
You mentioned clothing there. We've also got an image here of some trousers, and these are similar to what she was wearing. What's significant about these?
Yeah, so we know these trousers are size 10 and they are from Bay Trading and they're black in colour. But we also know that she was wearing a white or light coloured 34C bra from British Home Stores and white or light coloured underwear. And underneath those Bay Trading trousers, she was wearing brown or tan tights as well.
OK, now you do have a DNA profile for this woman. What is the significance of that?
So yes, there is a DNA profile for this woman on the missing persons database, but unfortunately there have been no matches to that DNA profile so far on any UK DNA database.
So that could suggest that she may not have been reported missing by someone, which would, by a loved one, for example, which would be quite sad if that's the case.
Yes, absolutely. So we're just hoping that someone might recognise her or look at the picture and think that she bears some similarity to someone that they know and perhaps have lost contact with. She may have been a friend or an acquaintance or even an ex-colleague. So, you know, maybe your viewers have seen her in the street, or maybe she used to come to their place of work or leisure activities and they no longer see her. So, you know, we don't want people to worry if the information they have is very limited, because it still may link to the information we already have.
Yeah, and it could be the missing piece of the jigsaw you need. Maureen, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So, take a good look. Do you recognise this woman, or perhaps you have some idea of who she might be? Please do get in touch today, if so police can finally identify her. Next is a particularly disturbing case from Avon and Somerset Police, where a young woman was sexually assaulted on a night out in Bristol. I'm joined now by Detective Inspector Andy Fox to tell us more. Thank you for joining us, Andy. It really is an awful sounding incident. What happened?
Well, the incident happened in the early hours of the 17th of July this year, around 6 a.m. The victim was attacked on 2 occasions at 2 separate locations. The first attack happened in Brandon Hill Park in Bristol, whereby the victim had her hair pulled by the attacker from behind and he's gone on to physically assault her. The second attack has happened at a residential property in North Bristol.
Absolutely dreadful. Now, the victim had been on a night out in Bristol, and what do we know about her movements after that?
So what we know is the victim left Rayner Bar on Park Street about 4:55 a.m, where she was socialising with friends. She's walked up the road towards Charlotte Street with a male and then walked in the direction of Brandon Hill Park, where the first attack has happened. We're not exactly sure where or when within the park it was, but it's between 5 a.m. and 5:15 a.m.
OK, now there is some CCTV that you provided from that night. This is the victim leaving the bar with someone else. Talk us through this.
So this male was seen leaving the bar with the victim. He was around the location at the time that the victim left the location, and we're really keen to identify this person because we believe that he'll have important information which will assist us with this investigation.
He could be holding vital information about this investigation, as you say, so we need to find out who that is. Now, after that first attack, as you've just described, it didn't even end there, did it?
No, unfortunately not. Whilst part of the victim's memory is vague about what happened that morning, she does remember that she was walking towards the road with a male. She tries to call a taxi but is apprehended by that male, who cancels the call. He then goes on to call a taxi himself to the place that he was staying. And out of fear, the victim has got in the taxi with the male, but remembers during that journey there was no conversation between them, it was completely silent. They arrive at a block of flats, which is in an area that the victim was not familiar with. And it's within those flats that the victim was attacked again physically and then raped.
Absolutely horrendous. Now, thankfully, she was able to escape from that property and make her way off and call a taxi. Tell us about that.
Yes, so the victim was able to leave without alerting the offender. And once outside, she started to run away. When out of sight of the address, she then walked for about another 20 minutes before she was eventually picked up by a taxi somewhere around Henbury Court and Station Road in Henbury. She's not exactly clear on the route she took.
Now, the reason we put the circle round here, that's roughly 20 minutes walking time from the pickup point where she was, and it just shows the size of the area that she could be within that. But you're appealing today for anyone that might have seen someone fitting her description, perhaps feeling out of place that time in the morning, someone that may have captured anything on their doorbell cameras, for example, or dash cams.
Yeah, exactly that, because we don't know the route. It's a time of day that people would be up and about, walking their dogs, potentially going to work. So we're really keen to see if anyone's seen the victim running or walking in that location, or, as you say, any security or doorbell footage that's captured the victim, which help us piece together the route that was taken to the pickup point.
Yeah, it could be absolutely crucial. And the victim herself has been able to give a description of the attacker.
Yeah, the description is that it's a male, early to mid-20s, medium build, about 5'8", with short dark hair.
And I have to ask, how is she doing now? I know that she's been in touch with yourself and specialist officers.
Yeah, the victim, it's had a significant impact on the well-being of the victim, but she is being supported by specialist officers from my team and other specialist services.
OK, Andy, thank you. Well, do you recognise the man police may have that vital information about that night? Or perhaps you live in the area and you might have, as we mentioned, doorbell footage or any home security footage that's captured between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. on the 17th of July this year. It could be crucial and you may be able to help police with their inquiries. The number to call is on your screens now.
First today, it's the murder of young mother Michelle Bettles, whose family have lived without knowing who killed her for decades.
Michelle was bright, she was intelligent, she spoke fluent French, quite a bit of German. I mean, I love politics, and so did she. I could have a discussion with her on any subject whatsoever. She used to love calling me Dad, and I used to think, you know, yeah, I feel proud of that. She was just happy-go-lucky. And it's only when she got to about 13 and then she started meeting boys. She changed overnight. She started smoking and drinking, and she's gone from being this happy girl to one that just wanted to argue and fight about everything in the world. We believe, and me in particular, that that's where Michelle got dragged into that world.
So Michelle Bettles was 22 years old. She'd been working as a sex worker for 2 years in and around Norwich city centre. On Thursday, the 28th of March 2002, which was the run-up to Easter, she was last seen on St Benedict's walking towards Norwich city centre at about 8:20, and that was picked up on CCTV. And that was the last sighting of her. She had an appointment at 9 o'clock in the opposite direction to what she was travelling in, and she never made that appointment. Her body was found just about where I am now, which is about 6 or 7 metres off the Podmore Lane, which is a very minor country track. It's a very rural area. There's very little traffic about. It's about 500 metres off the A47, the main Norwich to King's Lynn carriageway.
On the morning of the 31st of March 2002, approximately 20 miles from the red light district in Norwich, Michelle's body was found by a local resident who was walking his dog in some woodland. She had been strangled.
The post-mortem and the scientific analysis of Michelle suggested that she'd been dead for 24 hours before she was found, which puts it into the 30th of March. And also, more oddly, that the scientists felt that she'd been stored somewhere dry, perhaps the boot of a car or another building, before she was brought here after she'd been murdered.
When Michelle's body was discovered in the woods, some of her belongings had gone.
Well, Michelle was missing some items of clothing. She was missing a very distinctive black leather coat that she was known for wearing. She was missing a jumper with a fleeced collar. Her underwear was missing, and so were some items from her handbag. There are several sightings of her, 6 in fact, in and around Queen's Road, City Road, Burr Street, areas of Norwich, which was the red light district at the time. And there are numerous sightings of her there that we believe she was working at up until around midnight that evening. This was one of the biggest cases Norfolk had at the time. There were 674 DNA profiles taken. There was 9,000 statements taken trying to find the person responsible for murdering Michelle.
After exhaustive inquiries, police questioned 3 suspects, but when their alibis checked out, they were released. 20 years on, and the crime still remains unsolved.
There isn't a day go by where you don't think about Michelle. She was Denise's daughter and my daughter, and I want her to be remembered that way. We come down on her birthday, and we come down on the anniversary of her death. We have to pass Podmore Lane, where Michelle was found. I always know when we get nearby. It's just like a magnet guides me to her.
Michelle's killer is still at large. But now, with advances in DNA sequencing technology, there is new hope that they will be found.
The latest DNA can sequence what colour eyes you have, what colour hair you have. That's the latest advances we're talking about. So what we're trying to do is take advantage of those new scientific techniques. We know that Michelle met several men during the last 2 days of her life, and those men have never come forward. Her body, her clothing and her jewellery are subjected to DNA forensic analysis, and there were several samples that identified profiles of individuals. Whoever had contact with her, whoever was responsible for her death, would have left a forensic trace. For us, it's unravelling what her legitimate contacts were and what the contacts were of the person that murdered her. John is no longer a young man, and him and Denise are obviously getting older, and you know, for closure for them would probably be the most important thing in their lives.
I always imagine sitting there with Denise and saying to her, it's all over. And yet I always feel emotional about that, just saying, that's it. It's over now. And then we can just go on and try and live a normal life, which we've not lived for 20 years. It never, ever leaves you. We've served a sentence that somebody else should have been serving.
Well, I'm joined now by former DCI Andy Guy, who is the major crime review manager working on the case. You saw him in the film there. Welcome, Andy. Thanks for being with us. Before we go back into the details of the case, you have had a fresh breakthrough when it comes to the DNA of Michelle's killer. What more can you tell us about that?
Well, the original inquiry established a forensic image of a person that was arrested and was later eliminated from the inquiry. In the last 6 months to 12 months, we've been re-looking at clothing from Michelle's body herself and the area that she was found in, and looking to establish what new profiles we could establish. And what we've got is a series of information, and what we do have that's really exciting is a full DNA profile of a man that had close contact with Michelle shortly before she died.
So a promising development there, Andy. Tell us a bit more about Michelle.
Michelle was 22. She was the mother of 3 children who unfortunately didn't get to know her. She was an intelligent woman, and she was expected to go on to university from when she was 13. She was heading that way. She had she got into a drugs habit, which led to her work in the red light area of Norwich for about 2 years. When she was working, she had a distinctive black leather coat, and we saw it in the film. It was a 3/4 length leather coat. That was very distinctive, and that's helped us plot sightings of her later on in the evening.
Yeah, well, we can actually see a CCTV image of Michelle now in that distinctive black coat, as you mentioned. This is from the last time Michelle was sighted, as you say. Just talk us through what we know about her last movements.
So this is Michelle heading towards the Norwich city centre. It's Thursday, the 28th of March, 2002, Easter weekend. This is 8:20. She's walking towards the city, and there's St Gregory's Church on the image there. She had an appointment at 9 o'clock in the opposite direction, which she never kept, which was unusual for her. And there are 5 or 6 sightings of Michelle in her coat, and they're not confirmed, but because of descriptions, we're fairly confident that is her. And that ran up to about midnight on the evening.
Now, Michelle wasn't actually found until the following Sunday, was she? And where the body was found, it's quite a distance to where she was last seen.
Yeah, it's about 23 miles from Scarning, where she was found, from Norwich city centre. And the area itself is woodland. It's a very narrow track. You couldn't pass 2 vehicles side by side. You'd have to pull over. And it's a very rural location off the A47 trunk road. And it was a consideration at the time that the person that deposited Michelle there may had some local knowledge of that area.
And she was missing some of her items, wasn't she?
Yeah. That distinctive leather coat was missing, and also some items for a handbag were never recovered.
And no one's come forward as yet to say that they're actually with Michelle on that weekend?
No, this was a key line of inquiry at the time, and I understand why people may not have come forward. But that is really what we're striving for today, is to identify those individuals that had close contact with Michelle in the days before she died.
This weekend was quite a significant one as well. Lots of things happening which might help to jog people's memories.
Yeah, it was Easter bank holiday weekend 2002. It was also the weekend that the Queen Mother died on the Saturday. So Michelle didn't receive the media coverage that would have normally happened because of events in the royal family.
So now you have this potential DNA match, Andy. What are you appealing for today? How can our viewers watching at home help?
There's 2 areas we'd appeal for. Firstly, is to those that may have had close contact with Michelle in the run-up to her death. Like I said earlier, we do have forensic evidence as well that we'd like to eliminate people from the main profile. And obviously, if we find out the names of those people, we'll visit them, and we'd like to give them the opportunity to call us before. And if it's an innocent explanation, give us the discretion to deal with it.
We heard from Michelle's parents, John and Denise, in the film there. They've not been able to live a normal life for the past 20 years. As John said, they just want to see justice served, don't they?
They do, and I spoke to John yesterday, and he used the same phrase that he used in the film, that he feels and Denise feel they've served the 20-year sentence that somebody else should have done. They're getting older. This is the last opportunity to resolve this case for them.
Andy, thanks very much. We'll catch up with you again a little bit later in the programme. So did you see or were you with Michelle Bettles that night? Have you any information about what might have happened to her? If you do, please contact us on the number below. Her parents have waited long enough, as Andy said there. You can also call the Major Crime Review team at Norfolk Police. You can call them direct on 01953 423 819. But first, Hampshire Police are appealing for information after an attempted abduction of a teenage girl on Friday, the 9th of September this year. Here to tell us more is Temporary DS Steve Tuck from Hampshire Constabulary. Steve, thanks so much for joining us this morning. So this happened in Farnborough. What more can you tell us about it?
Good morning, thank you. Yes, so this was an incident that happened just after 3:30 in the afternoon on the 9th of September, where a teenager was walking along Alexandra Road, which is between Boundary Road and Reading Road. She noticed, as she was walking along the road, a car that kept passing her, and describes that vehicle as a silver Ford Focus with a 08 registration. That vehicle did stop on one of those occasions, and there was the male in the vehicle got out and tried to grab her and pull her towards the vehicle while stating, "Come here."
That's just so scary. In fact, thankfully, he didn't manage to grab her, did he?
No,
he drove away.
Luckily.
But you think there would have been many witnesses that could have seen what happened at the time? You mentioned it was the middle of the afternoon, quite a busy area. Yeah,
absolutely. It's a busy road. There would have been various people travelling through, and we know that there was a group standing nearby who we haven't identified yet, so we'll be keen to speak to those people.
We also have an e-fit of the suspect in question. We can see that now. Just talk us through this.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the description that the victim has provided to us. She describes him as a white male. He's approximately 5'10" tall, in his late 20s to early 30s. Describes that he's got sort of blonde, slick back hair, which goes to the right-hand side, and he was wearing a grey jumper and grey jogging bottoms.
And you're interested in any information about the vehicle as well, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I say she describes it as a silver Ford Ford Focus. It could be that someone knows of a vehicle that is similar to that of a 08 registration, and whether the occupant or someone that drives that vehicle looks similar to this person, would be keen to obviously speak to them and follow up any inquiries from that.
And it may be that people that were passing the area at the time had footage recorded on dash cam. That could be really helpful, couldn't it? Yes,
absolutely. It was a busy area. There would have been people passing through, so there may be people that were there at the time that didn't see anything happen. However, you've got a dash cam on your vehicle. We'd be keen to review that, have a look to see if it can lead to any inquiries for us.
And Steve, it's important to say that incidents like this are quite rare. Nevertheless, it's left the victim really shaken, hasn't it?
Yeah, she's scared, and rightly so, to go out on her own now as a result of this, and just want to reiterate, it is an isolated incident. It doesn't happen very often, but when these things do, we need to try and identify these people and ensure it doesn't happen again.
Absolutely, Steve. Thanks very much again. So, does this man look familiar to you, or were you in the area of Farnborough on Friday, the 9th of September, between 3 and 4 p.m? Perhaps you have dashcam footage or mobile phone footage that recorded something. Clearly, this is worrying, and if you have any information that might help, please get in touch. The number is on your screen now. Our first appeal today takes us to Scotland's Aberdeen and a nearly 40-year-old murder that's become notorious in the city. Up on the coast of northeast Scotland, the 1980s was a time of unprecedented change.
Aberdeen was in a state of transformation. At that time, the 4 major industries were fishing, shipbuilding, industrial textiles and paper. And a lot of them were in decline, and of course then the oil hit Aberdeen, and that basically changed everything. We saw a large influx of people from around the world, a lot of transient people into Aberdeen.
Alec Mackay lived here through these changes, but the memories that have stayed with him are of his uncle George and one of the city's darkest episodes.
George was born and bred at Aberdeen. He grew up in Aberdeen. He was just an ordinary working man. And we called him, well, part of the family called him George. Our part called him Dodd, which is an abbreviation for George. My Uncle Dodd was just a genuinely nice guy. He liked kids, and growing up, we had a great time with him. He loved his hobbies, whether it was keeping his pigeons. He had a small boat that he liked to go out, and I think he was a big kid at heart as well, in many ways.
He'd been happily married for 37 years.
My Aunt Jessie was one of life's gems. Her and Dodd met and married. They had a great marriage. Their relationship was really strong, really strong.
In the late 1970s, George was made redundant from his job at a factory. To make ends meet, he took up work as a taxi driver.
And that was really just to earn an income from it for him and my Aunt Jessie. And he didn't particularly like it. I know my Aunt Jessie really hated him doing that job. She always said to him, she says, "I'm worried about your dad doing that, particularly on the night shift." He says, "Oh, Jess," he said, "if anybody tries to take my money, etc., he says, I'm going to give it to them." He says, my Uncle Dodd was not a fighter. He just was not a fighter.
On Thursday, the 29th of September 1983, George was working an evening shift. At around 8:30 p.m, his Ford Cortina taxi was seen parked as he picked up a fare on the busy Queen's Road. He radioed through to the taxi control room to say he was heading to Cooter on the western outskirts of Aberdeen. But George would never reach his destination. As George drove his taxi towards Cooter, he turned onto Pitfoddles Station Road and stopped. It's there George was brutally attacked by his passenger. The attacker used a cheese wire as a garrote. They spilled out onto the road, where two boys passing on their bikes witnessed George being strangled. He was desperately calling for help. The two boys raced to call the police, but it was too late.
Dodd was late, and Jessie had been anxious in terms of when she got to see her husband again. And then there's a knock at the door. Police were there with on it. It's funny, I never get emotional, but just something's set me off, sorry.
And then the phone in Alec's house rang.
What did you say, Mother? Says, Dodd's dead. I says, oh. And then, of course, I asked her what had happened, and she says, well, it's a little bit fuzzy just now, she says, but he's been murdered. He was out in his taxi, and someone's murdered him. And that was the night that we lost my uncle.
Police have been searching waste ground and gardens all round the quiet suburban street where Mr. Murdoch died. Dog handlers too have been called in to help in the search for a man between 20 and 30 years old whose dark clothing, say the police, may be blood-stained.
I would appeal to anyone who was in the Queens Road area of the city between 8:15 and 8:45 last night and who saw anything that they think will help me.
Police have set up a base close to the spot Mr. Murdoch was attacked on the ground outside his taxi. The man they're looking for is 5 foot 7 inches tall, thin, has short dark hair and is clean shaven.
The news shocked the nation. Dubbed the cheese wire killer, police mounted a huge manhunt to find George's murderer.
It was brutal, very brutal. Someone carrying a cheese wire with them? Yeah, wow, what kind of person would do that? They're not using it for their work. It's premeditated, it has to be. It takes a special, callous individual to go out with something like that.
A possible sighting of a man seen with blood on his hands at a local chip shop shortly after the murder didn't bring any new leads or a name. After a long investigation, and despite their efforts, there were no substantial leads and no further clues. All that is known is that George's wallet and his fares from that evening had been taken. Jessie's worst fears had been played out.
Unfortunately, of course, after the death of Dodd, her life changed just remarkably. Her health went into decline. She never ever spoke about Dodd's murder, but she never felt safe. She always thought that the killer was going to come back and harm her.
On the 24th of March 2004, Jessie passed away.
So unfortunately, she went to her grave, not knowing who his murderer was. At times, it makes me angry, sad. I mean, that she wasn't able to see justice.
After all this time, Alec and the rest of George's family haven't given up hope that someone may come forward with information.
For the family, and also for those that have passed, you can't take something like that to your grave. I mean, even if it's a hunch and it's a small piece of information, please share it. Small snippets of information from you might actually help us with a small piece of information from somebody else. We're able to start joining the dots. I mean, closure to a family is I mean, it's like gold dust. It's something that you crave for, that you need. We certainly do. Even after 38 years, and I know a lot of people might say cold case murder, who cares? out of family care. We've always cared, we always will.
Well, I'm joined now by DI James Callender from Police Scotland, the investigating officer on this case. Good to have you with us, James. Now, we appealed for information on this murder earlier in the year. We had some promising calls. In particular, people were talking about the weapon that was used, suggesting that it could have been pottery wire rather than cheese wire. What more can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so we've had lots of calls and fresh lines of inquiry, but I can confirm, obviously the murder weapon was considered, but it is a cheese wire and not a pottery wire. It belongs to a cheese set board that was manufactured in England and sold mainly in England.
OK. Now, there is a key development with regard to this case that we can talk about very shortly, but let's just have a reminder of the facts, first of all. Just tell us what happened that night.
Yeah, so it was the 29th of September 1983, 8:30 in the evening, and George was working as a taxi driver. He picked up a fare on Queen's Road in Aberdeen in the West End, and a couple of miles into his journey he's ended up at Pitfoddle Station Road, radioing into his control room to say he was heading to Cooter, and that's where the attack happened. He was attacked with the cheese wire which had been fashioned into a garrote.
Yeah, a really brutal attack, wasn't it, James? Let's talk about this new information then. What more can you tell us?
Yeah, so on the back of previous appeals, we're aware of an individual that had been drinking in Wilson Sports Bar on the 26th of September 2015, some 3 days before the anniversary date of the murder. There was a group of individuals, and there's an indication that this gentleman who'd been within the bar may have some information relating to the murder. He was wearing an Iron Maiden t-shirt, like this replica here. It's a Iron Maiden t-shirt from the 2010-11 Final Frontier Tour of Germany.
Yeah, we can see the wording on the back there, the Final Frontier World Tour Germany, as you said, James. So a very distinctive t-shirt. So you're looking for anybody that may have recognised a man in the pub wearing that?
Exactly, yeah. We're just looking for anybody who has any knowledge of who may have been wearing that t-shirt in Wilson Sports Bar to come forward, and anybody else with any further information.
Yeah, now we heard from George's nephew, Alex, in the film there. His words were incredibly powerful, weren't they? Yeah. Just saying that they haven't got closure, and anybody could have that small piece of information that could help with this case. This has had a lasting effect on the whole family, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, even 39 years on, the family and the police don't give up hope for justice and a little bit of closure. You know, it's vital that we catch the person responsible. Jessie died without knowing who had murdered her husband, so you know, vitally important to us.
Yeah, totally. And there is a sizable reward for information in connection to this case, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. The reward is substantial. It's been increased from 20,000 to 50,000. 10,000 of that is coming from the local Aberdeen journals. 5,000 is from Rainbow City Taxis, who George used to work for, and the remainders came from the family. It's an astonishing amount of money to, you know, for the loved ones and businesses to put forward.
Absolutely, as you said, £50,000, and that's for information leading to the confirmed identity of the killer.
Yes.
James, thanks very much. We'll catch up with you again a little later on in the programme. So do you know anyone who frequented the Wilson Sports Bar on Market Street who had this Iron Maiden t-shirt, or do you know anyone who may have information about the murder itself? If so, then please pick up the phone. .uk. Now, our first appeal takes us to Cheltenham and the brutal rape and assault of a young woman. Obviously, this has some upsetting details.
It was around November of 2017. I'd been in Cheltenham town centre. I spent quite a few hours there that day. Just before 11 p.m. at night, I was on the high street. I'd spotted this guy a few times. He was wearing really smart sports clothes. He was around 28, I'd say, maybe a bit younger. average build, very neat hair, short, dark eyes, slightly olive skin, quite an attractive guy. He ended up coming up to me and we started chatting whilst walking through town. We walked along Regent Street and up the promenade into Montpellier and towards St Andrew's Church. It's got a green next to it. I didn't think anything was odd at first, but as we walked along, he started saying things to me. I heard him say about how I looked like his mum. Then he said my mum had long ginger hair, that she had red in her hair. We walked into the green. We were behind the church. There wasn't anyone else around. All of a sudden, he grabbed my hair and started smashing my head against the church wall. My mouth was bleeding, some of my teeth came out. He kept telling me how I looked like his mum with long red and ginger hair. I was trying to get away. He was shouting at me. He dragged me across the ground. He was pushing my head onto the ground, strangling me. I was terrified. I thought I was going to get killed. Then he raped me. And he kept saying things about his mother. I saw this guy nearby and thought, this is my only chance. Made a break for it. I ran to the guy and said, please help me, I'm getting raped, please call the police. I thought he was going to be my saviour, but he pushed me off him and was like, I'm not getting involved. The man who attacked me was chasing after me saying, she stole my watch. I kept running as fast as I could. I saw another guy at the top of Montpellier by the co-op. I said, please help me, I don't have a phone, ring the police. He pushed me away and carried on walking. He said, sorry, I'm in a rush. Thankfully, by then, the man that attacked me had gone. I have nightmares, flashbacks, and hear his voice in my head. His sickening words go through my mind. It's hard to feel safe with people, even to be on my own in the same room as a man. I just hope they catch him, as the thought of another girl being tortured like I was fills me with dread.
Just so terrifying. I'm joined now by DC Annabelle Britton from Gloucestershire Police. Annabelle, thanks so much for coming in. First of all, I just have to ask, how's the victim doing? Because this really was, as we saw in the film, a disturbing and really violent attack.
Absolutely, it's a horrendous attack. Understandably, she will be suffering long-term effects from the trauma, but her main concern now is to support the investigation, to support this appeal, in the hope that we can find this really dangerous man before he does it to somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's recap on the details again. Just remind us exactly where and when this happened.
Yes, it was in Cheltenham Town Centre in the winter of 2017 to 18, and our young lady's been in the High Street near the main shops area where she encounters this chap. He lures her to the Montpellier area, which is about an 8-minute walk away. And when they're there, he lures her into the grounds of the St Andrew's church. As soon as they're in there, he becomes really violent. There's no one else around. It's dark, 11 o'clock at night. He smashes her face into the church wall. She's left bleeding. She's still missing a tooth as a result. And then the main attack happens.
These injuries were horrific, weren't they, Annabelle?
Absolutely. And I've seen this kind of strong stone wall where her face has literally been smashed into it. It's very distressing.
Now, although this was a few years ago, the victim has been able to provide a really detailed description of the attacker, hasn't she? In fact, we can see an EFIT. Just talk us through what we've got here.
She has, yes. She supported us in achieving this. And she says it's a very, very close likeness indeed. So it's a white man. She said at the time in his mid to late 20s, about 5'8" to 10, tall and of medium build, very short, dark hair, and he spoke with a distinct English accent and a smart sports attire he was wearing.
And he made some very specific and disturbing statements, didn't he, which you actually think could help provide some clues for the case?
Absolutely. It's his wording that's really, really specific. I'm sure it wasn't the first time he used these words, and it won't be the last. He commented, "Oh, my mummy had long red hair, my mummy had long ginger hair." And even while he's raping her, he says, "Tell me mummy loves you." It's really disturbing, really unusual. And I think there's somebody out there, perhaps in a domestic violence context, who might have heard this type of wording. Maybe there's somebody who's got a friend they've had concerns about, overheard something, shared a prison cell with somebody. But this person's really, really dangerous. If he did this to our young lady, who knows what could happen next. So please, please come forward with any information.
Yeah, absolutely. It's horrific, isn't it? You're also appealing directly to 2 witnesses that were there on the night, aren't you?
That's correct. We're really hoping these people could help. They probably aren't aware that they might even know anything significant. She manages to escape because she hears somebody coming past the grounds of the church. So she pulls away from the offender mid-attack. And runs towards him. Unfortunately, the offender calls out, "Oh, she's stolen my watch," kind of trying to say that she's the one who's the bad person in this. So, of course, he doesn't help. She runs further up towards Montpellier, finds another person she hopes might come to her aid. But he says, "Oh, I'm in a rush," and somewhat pushes her off. Obviously, he didn't know at the time the circumstances, but if these people think they could have been in the area at the time, please do let us know. They might have seen something, vehicle, anything that could help. Please do get in touch.
Yeah, as you say, Annabelle, they could have that crucial piece of information. This has had such an impact on the victim. She just wants this man caught. Annabelle, thanks so much for joining us. We'll catch up with you again later in the programme. As Annabelle said, if you are one of the people the victim approached that night, please do get in touch. Or maybe this attacker has his fascination with red hair, maybe that sounds familiar to you. Any information you can give that could help find the man responsible, our contact details are on the screen now.
Our first appeal today, though, takes us to Manchester, where 37-year-old mum of 5, Elsa Hannaway, was brutally murdered. Now, as you can imagine, this is a particularly horrendous case.
Mum was born in St Vincent in 1949. She was one of 9 children, and she came to the UK at the age of 12 with her older brother. She was very well spoken, well dressed, and very pretty. She was just a lovely young girl. People describe my mum as being happy, go-lucky. I know people always remember that she loved to dance and have a good time. I can't really say or anyone had a bad word to say about her.
On the 29th of October 1987, 37-year-old Elsa was getting ready for a night out.
She loved to dance. If she felt to go out, she didn't have to go out with anybody, she could go out on her own, had a few drinks and had a good time. That's mainly what she did when she wanted to relax and do something different apart from being a mum. And I think she left out about 9, 10 o'clock. And that was the last time that I saw her.
That night, Elsa was out in the Moss Side area of the city.
She went to the West Indian Sports and Social Club, where she was seen dancing, and to the Big Western pub, which no longer exists. She stayed out socialising with friends till the early hours of the morning. She was walking home along Moss Lane East, near to Whitworth Park. She was seen by a number of people, being followed by a man who was described as black with dreadlocks. And at some point, she was seen to be chased by this man into the park. Several witnesses described the man in a similar manner. And a couple of witnesses saw him running out of the park round about 3 a.m.
Later that morning, around 6:30, a jogger came across Elsa.
She was very, very cold, very ill. She was suffering from hypothermia. She was clearly in a distressed state, and the ambulance and the police were called.
The police came to see me. I was at work. I remember them saying, "Is your mother called Elsa Hanaway?" And I says, "Yes." And I said, "Is everything okay?" And he says, "Oh, she's been in..." I just remember them saying she's been in an accident.
Elsa had been raped and sustained severe head injuries during the attack. Later that morning, she died from a brain hemorrhage and hypothermia.
It was very emotional because we didn't know what to do. I remember just sitting there just thinking, this is not real. I remember the TV was on and she came up on the news.
Mrs. Hanaway left here shortly after 10 o'clock last night. For 5 hours, she lay naked in Manchester's Whitworth Park after being raped, kicked and beaten. She died in hospital without recovering consciousness. Elsa Hanaway was a family woman who had 2 children and a grandson.
I remember Raphael getting up. He was just like the apple of her eye. He called her mummy, even though he knew I was his mum. And he walked over to the TV and he went, "Mummy." And, sorry, that hit me then. And like I said, with Raphael, he didn't understand what was going on at the time. And he just kept saying, "Mummy, Mummy, where's Mummy coming back?" She was a constant in his life. And then she was gone. As a family, it's broken a lot of us because my mum was, she was the glue. It's the not knowing, and it's like there's no closure, so it's still something that none of us have come to terms with.
Witnesses were able to give detectives a description of the suspect.
The new sketch of the man who raped and murdered Elsa Hanaway was released by police at a news conference today.
People came forward with information, but no one was charged. The investigation by Greater Manchester Police was huge.
There were about 125 detectives working on it. Even with all that staffing and intense investigation, it all came to a dead end. No CCTV in the area of the park at the time. DNA was in its very early stages. There wasn't a DNA database fully established. There were limited opportunities to progress the case at that time. So it involved getting information or intelligence from the local community. At the time of Elsa's murder, it's probably fair to say that the relationships between the police and the community locally wasn't as good as it could be. But times have moved on now, so that's who we're appealing to now. Clearly, there is someone out there who thinks they've got away with murder. There's somebody out there that needs to be brought to justice.
Even though it sounds like a long time ago, 35 years, to us it's not. It's like yesterday. It's like the same thing, just a repeated day. Knowing that someone done that to her, I couldn't get my head around it, and I still can't. From how she was treated and left to die, and the hope is that one day he'll be caught and justice will be given to my family for our mum.
Just heartbreaking. Well, earlier this morning, I spoke to Martin Bottomley from Greater Manchester Police Cold Case Unit about the investigation of Elsa's murder. And I started by asking him what police had been able to piece together about that night.
Well, we know that Elsa was out socialising that night. She went out, she loved dancing. She used to go to the West Indian Sports and Social Club, which she did on that night. And then she went to the Big Western pub and made her way back to the Sports and Social Club, where she was seen about 1:15. Around about 2:15 in the morning, she was seen near Whitworth Park, and there was a man following her and then appearing to argue with her. And then later on, a witness saw a man running away from Whitworth Park about 3:30 a.m. but it wasn't until half 6 in the morning when Elsa was found very seriously injured. She'd been battered and beaten, and unfortunately she died later that morning in hospital.
It's just awful, Martin. So you've got a very clear timeline of events there. What do we know about the attacker?
Well, we know he's a West Indian male. He was about 5'9" to 6 foot, probably in his early 20s to 30s. So that would make him about 50 to 60 now, probably. He had the beginnings of a beard, but he had long shoulder-length dreadlocks, and as you can see from the photo fit, he was wearing a hat, and that was in the distinctive red, gold and green colours of a Rastafarian, Jamaican colours.
Now, people did come forward with information at the time, but you also believe there are a lot of people that may have been reluctant to give information to the police in the past.
Yes, there probably was some reluctance. You know, people weren't as willing to contact the police then as they are now, but we're now launching a £50,000 reward for information which leads to the arrest and conviction of the killer. And it's important that we never give up on cases like this. This case must be solved both for Elsa's family and also to bring the killer to justice. He must be found.
Absolutely. Martin, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So, do you know anyone from that time who matches the description and was acting suspiciously? If you remember anything at all that could help find Elsa's killer, the number to call is 08000 468 999. Our lines are open from 9:30 a.m. until midday. And you can also text us 24 hours a day on 63399. Text the word crime, leave a space, then write your message. Your text will be charged at your standard message rate. Or you could always send us an email. The address is cwl@bbc.co.uk.
Now, Thames Valley Police are investigating a sexual assault that took place on the 11th of May in the Jericho area of Oxford. I'm with PC Stephanie Derrick now to hear more. Good morning, Stephanie. Tell us what happened.
So on the 11th of May at around 11 p.m. in the evening, the victim was walking, being given a piggyback by her boyfriend from the Jericho area. As she was walking along the St John's Road, she has felt somebody unknown touch her. As they got to the end of that road there by Beaumont Street, her boyfriend's put her down, which is when a witness has come over, and said, "I've just seen what's happened, are you okay?" Which is the moment that she realised that she'd been touched by somebody unknown.
A complete stranger has come up and done that to her. OK. Now, you've got some CCTV that you've provided us today. What are we seeing here? Talk us through this.
So the victim is on her partner's back there. This is just by the secular library, like in the map there, and then there's a male following closely behind who we're interested in speaking with.
Yeah, that person is very close there. You believe he might have some vital information, so you'd like to identify him. Interestingly, the suspect of this offence actually comes up to the victim afterwards, doesn't he, and actually apologises?
Yeah, so the witness obviously had seen what had happened, had gone after the suspect, had a conversation with him and brought him back to speak to the victim. And he actually says words to the effect of, I shouldn't have done that, I'm sorry. It's just not enough.
It is not enough, is it? This is a crime. Let's make this crystal clear. Yeah. That is not enough to say that. So let's have a look at the image of the person that you say might have vital information. You do want to speak to this person regardless. What can you describe him as?
So it's a white male. He's around 5'10". He's got a buzz cut, shaved head. He's got beard. In the footage, it's a little bit dark, but he's wearing a burgundy jumper and grey jogging bottoms. And it was said at the time that he looked like he could be a camper or a hiker because of the way that he was wearing like a big bag and how he looked and was dressed.
OK, and regardless of his involvement, he was there at the time, and as you say, he could have vital information that could aid the investigation. Now, I know this has had a real impact on the victim, and she's provided what's known as an impact statement. And on that, I'm going to read just some of her words here. And she says, "I never expected to feel this way and be affected so much for so long. I don't like going out on my own. I avoid going out in the dark or certain areas and situations. My life is not the same." It just sums up just how much this has affected this young person.
Massively, she's absolutely devastated. And I just think that people shouldn't be allowing this to happen. It's so underreported, and we are taking it very seriously.
And you're keen to stress that, aren't you? As a police officer, you want people to report anything like this.
Yeah. Without knowing, we can't sort it out. And people shouldn't be living feeling so devastated by the impact of what these people do in clubs or wherever. It's just not okay.
Very well said, Stephanie, thank you. So have a good look. Do you recognise this man? If you do, then please do get in touch. Details of how you do that are on the screens. We begin with that case of 22-year-old Darren Burt, who was left to die in the streets. Can you help police find the people responsible?
No parent should bury their children. The pain never goes away, ever. And we need justice for Darren. Darren was my firstborn son. He was a lovely boy. He enjoyed football. He played lots and lots of football when he was younger. He was a happy child. He had lots and lots and lots of friends that he's made, and all from the east end of Glasgow. The last thing I said to Darren was, "I'll see you tomorrow, son." And he went his way, and I went my way, and I never seen him again.
Midweek in Glasgow, Darren was on his way to a night out with his mates.
He was heading to a friend's house in Bournemouth Road in Glasgow, and he was going there with a view to watching football and having some drinks. Around about 10 o'clock at night, Darren became involved in an altercation with one of the men in that house, which caused for the householder to ask everybody to leave. They all basically made their way out onto the street, onto Edinburgh Road. And attended at a local service station where they bought food and drinks. It was at that time Darren was approached by a member of the group who had challenged him around what had taken place earlier in the evening. And this again resulted in confrontation between them both.
They scuffle, and Darren pushes the other man to the ground.
Darren subsequently returned and joined his group of friends who were at a bus stop located in Edinburgh Road. A male had appeared from an area known locally as the Calvi Arch. He produced something from the waistband of his trousers, which we believe possibly was a knife.
Two further men appeared from the Calvi Arch, one armed with a hammer, the other with a bottle.
Which he used immediately to strike Darren to the head.
Darren!
This caused for Darren to run for his life. Pursued by three men. There are witnesses who speak about hearing people shouting, catch him, don't let him get away."
These are the last images of Darren alive.
Darren ran and turned right down onto what is Burnett Road. The chase finally ends at Calvi Place. Darren tried to save himself by gaining entry to one of the local properties, and he was continually banging on a door. The witness could hear the sound of a disturbance and a loud thud, which had caused him to look outside, and as he did so, he could see three persons over the top assaulting Darren. This caused for him to alert the ambulance service.
Three attackers fled the scene, leaving Darren fatally wounded.
He was battered on the head and stabbed in the back and left to die in the street. And we got a visit from the police in the morning, and they said, "Your son's been murdered." And that's when the screaming started. All my family died that day, and it tore us all apart. Tore us apart. I'll never get closure, but I'm going to do everything in my power to get justice.
I'm joined now by DCI Lindsay Waters of the Specialist Crime Division in Glasgow. Thanks for coming in today, Lindsay. We've just seen the huge impact this has had on Darren's family. Remind us of those key details of what happened that night.
Yeah, so the murder of Darren took place in the early hours of the morning of the 28th of August 2002. The events kind of preceding that were he had been at his friend's house in Bournemouth Road in Glasgow to watch the football with a group of friends. And he became involved in an altercation within the house, and he, along with everybody else, was asked to leave, which he did, along with the remainder of his friends, and they made their way to Queensley service station in Glasgow, which was local to them. And there was a further kind of argument that took place between Darren and one of the other members of the group regarding what had taken place earlier on in the evening. As a result of this, Darren left the station and joined another group of friends at the bus stop in Edinburgh Road. And it was at that time that one of the suspects approached him and struck him to the head with a bottle. Okay. So this caused for Darren to make off. He was pursued at that time by 3 suspects. He ran kind of north-easterly onto Barlanach Road and down Burnett Road, where he tried to gain entry to a common close. Was unsuccessful, and unfortunately he was captured and fatally stabbed and was left lying in Calvi Place at that time.
And that's just at the bottom of the map there.
Yep.
OK. You've got some CCTV that you're going to show us here. Can you talk us through where this took place and what we're seeing here?
Yeah, so you can see briefly the bus stop kind of to the top right-hand side, and it's Darren has been pursued by the 3 suspects, and that's him making off towards Barlanach Road.
You can just see that they're running away there. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to freeze this here and we're going to show the 3 individuals in particular that you'd like to identify. Can you just talk us through these, Lindsay?
Yeah, so the suspects are all male, aged between 16 and 30 years of age. One of the suspects is wearing all dark clothing with white trainers and a brown Burberry baseball cap. The second suspect was wearing a light-coloured top, had a broad blue band across his chest, quite possibly a Lacoste top with dark trousers, light-coloured trainers, and he was also wearing a blue and white baseball cap at that time. And the third suspect was wearing all light clothing with black trainers. We think possibly it was light blue jeans that he had on.
OK. Now, I know you've managed to speak to some witnesses, but you believe there are more out there that would have seen or even heard what had happened. What would you say to them? How can they come forward?
Yeah, so, I mean, what I would say is that they're a real tight-knit community there who have a real reluctance to come forward and engage with the police. But our kind of cry to them is, you know, if you've got some misplaced loyalty or fears or reprisals, please be reassured that, you know, if you come forward and speak to us, any information will be treated with the utmost confidence.
Well, if they needed any further incentive, there is a financial reward as well that's been put up by Crime Stoppers.
Yeah, so Crime Stoppers are supporting this investigation, and they've offered a £20,000 reward for information that may lead to any arrests and future convictions of the persons responsible.
And there's also a way that they can speak to you direct. There's a police portal that they can use as well.
That's correct. We've got the police portal, and our reference is Operation Fenced on that, which is specific to the murder of Darren. OK, so it's a really quick and efficient way they can speak to your team directly there. Now, we heard the impact this has had on Darren's family. It is huge. It is lifelong. If there is still anyone at home that's watching this that's in 2 minds about coming forward, what would you say to them, direct to them? So I think Brian articulates it very well. Darren's father, it's absolutely torn their family apart. They're devastated, they're heartbroken. And I would ask people to, you know, put yourself in his shoes just for a short time. 20 years has, you know, moved forward, but not for Brian and his family. Please, you know, don't have that misplaced loyalty. I would ask that you please contact us, and we'll treat you with utmost respect in doing so.
Lindsay, thank you. So, do you know anything that could help catch the people responsible for Darren's murder? Have you heard anything over the years that you could share with police today? Please do get in touch. The numbers are on your screens now. But first, Thames Valley Police are investigating a series of reports of indecent exposure. All the incidents have similarities, which leads officers to believe that they are, in fact, looking for the same person. Here to tell us more is DI Bill Sykes from Thames Valley Police. Good morning, Bill. So you've got 4 reports that you're looking into, and you believe they've got a lot of similarities. Let's start with the first. Talk us through what's happened there.
OK, so the first offence occurred on Sunday, the 27th of March, 2022. It occurred at a care home on Hutton Close in Newbury. So we have CCTV images of a male who enters the car park wearing a dark top, but not wearing any trousers at all. And this male then approaches a window within the care home and presses himself up against it.
OK, let's have a look at the CCTV here we've got. It's not the clearest, Bill, but just talk us through what we are seeing here.
So this is the individual who has come to the side of the premises where there's a fence and a gate. He actually spent quite a bit of time in the car park area and around the building before being seen, and then the call coming in to the police.
OK, so it's not the clearest, but someone may recognise the person from that, and of course we'd want to hear from them. So that was March, and then there was a second report not that long afterwards. Tell us about that.
So the second report was on Saturday, the 21st of May. This report actually came in from a lady who lives on Huntingdon Gardens, which is again in Newbury, and as you'll see on the map, is not too far from the first offence. This lady saw, looking out of her rear window, saw a male stood at the opposite side of her fence, again not wearing any clothing on the lower half, and this time actually performing an indecent act. She did begin to record him using her mobile phone, but this hasn't dissuaded him from his offending. And actually, he's only left when somebody's actually called out that they're calling the police. OK, and sadly there was a third offence as well, this time on the 17th of June, so again not that long afterwards. Tell us about that. So the 17th of June was a Friday. This was 11:30 p.m. at night. A lady was walking near to the Riverside Community Centre, and she has become aware or felt that there is someone behind her. She's then felt somebody touching her from behind, and she was sexually assaulted. When she turned, she saw a male again, not wearing any clothing on the lower half, no shoes, who has then run away from her.
Absolutely horrible incident there. And there was a fourth incident as well. You're going to talk us through now.
Yes. So the fourth incident is slightly different. This occurred again on a Friday. This was the 1st of July at around 11:50 p.m. A lady was at Shore Park walking her dog, and as she walked towards a footbridge that goes over into Dean Way, she saw a male approaching that footbridge, but he hasn't gone across. He's waited in the park area, and then as she was crossing the bridge, again, she's become aware of somebody behind her, has turned and seen this male, again, performing an indecent act. But this time, he actually did have his lower clothing on.
OK. You can say with a pretty good degree of certainty that these crimes are linked.
Yes. When the third offence occurred, we looked back over similar offending in the location, and we discovered that we had 3 offences that were very similar in description. They all occurred at a weekend, all occurred at night, sort of in the evening into the night. And they all occurred in areas where there is either a play park, an AstroTurf pitch, some sort of sports equipment there. So we're comfortable that they are linked.
OK. Now, you want to make it clear that these are serious crimes and they are being treated seriously as well.
Absolutely. Thames Valley Police is obviously committed to investigating sexual assault and sexual offending and against reducing violence against women and girls. Indecent exposures and sexual assaults are treated seriously because they are serious offences, but also because they can escalate and actually result in more serious offending.
So, who are you appealing for today? How can our viewers help you?
So what we're appealing for today is for anybody who can review the images that we've got. You've said they're not of the best quality. However, somebody who knows this individual may well be able to identify them, and I would ask them to come forwards and tell us. We're also appealing for anybody who may have suffered or been involved or seen a similar incident and not reported it to the police to come forward and tell us so that we can understand exactly what's happening and investigate those offences. OK, and I know you don't have the most detailed description of who you're looking for, but you can give us a vague description of this male. Yes, so because they've happened late at night, the descriptions are limited, but we do know it's a white male, approximately 5'7" tall, of a medium to slim build. OK, well, hopefully some people can help with that. Bill, thank you. As you say, these incidents can sometimes escalate. Have you witnessed something similar? Perhaps you have and you haven't reported it yet. Or do you think you can identify the man from this image you can see there? Any information, please do get in touch, and the contact details are there on your screen.
Now, in February 2021, 43-year-old Darren Whitehouse was killed after a hit-and-run collision in Tipton, West Midlands. Earlier, I spoke to Detective Sergeant Paul Hughes from West Midlands Police Serious Collision Investigation Unit and Darren's mother, Sue, as well as Darren's auntie, Chris. I started by asking Sue what Darren was like.
Well, he wore around in my son. He cared for me as well. And
And it's hard.
You know, he looked after me and my late husband as well, who died like 4 months before Darren. And he was just a loving, caring person. And, you know, and there was a side to him that I don't even know until after that he'd helped that many people who come to me and told me that he'd helped their kids, like, you know.
Yeah.
And he was just... I say he was perfect, because nobody is. But he was my firstborn.
So sad.
He was just standing on the pavement, you know, just chatting away.
Yeah.
He loved fishing. He loved fishing and going to the gym. And he had loads of friends, you know, who all loved him as well.
And this whole situation for you must be amplified by the fact that the person responsible still hasn't been caught. How has this affected the whole family?
Well, we're all just devastated. I mean, it's completely... My life feels I ain't got no life now without Darren. I mean, I've got my other 2 sons, but all of us, the whole family, you know, we're just all just heartbroken. Yeah. And it'll never go away. I mean, really I heard it happen, you know, from where I was sitting in the house. And I just can't believe that, you know, somebody did this to him and they even stopped. They even put his foot on the brake of the car. You know, I just...
It's devastating, isn't it, Sue?
Absolutely heartbreaking.
And I really hope this morning that we're able to help in any way that we can. And Paul, I want to bring you in here because it's tragic. It's so tragic listening to Sue and how heartbreaking this is for the whole family. Just remind us the details of what happened on that day.
So, Michelle, 27th of February 2021, about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Darren is on St Mark's Road in Tipton, and he's stopped to chat to a friend that he knows. He stood on the pavement when, unfortunately, he's hit by this car, and unfortunately, as we know, as a result of the collision, he dies.
So, as you say, he was a pedestrian on the pavement, seemingly out of harm's way. We've actually got some dashcam footage that we can take a look at. This is leading up to the collision. Obviously, we don't see it in its entirety, but just talk us through what we can see here, Paul.
So you'll see on the video, Darren and his friend are just on the right. You can see on the screen. The car is travelling at speed and has lost control. And we know at that point you can see 59 miles per hour in a 30-mile-an-hour residential zone, lose control and mounts the pavement, all 4 wheels completely, carries on and unfortunately then collides with Darren.
It's absolutely shocking. And as we heard, the car continues to drive on at speed. It doesn't stop, does it?
No, absolutely no attempt whatsoever to stop, no looking back, no hesitating. That car continued straight on and just fell stop at the scene. It continued on several roads. We've managed to track it, as you'll see from the CCTV. And the dangerous driving just continued. It just kept getting worse. There was no let up in that driving.
Now, a little later on, the car was actually dumped, wasn't it?
Yes, so the car was recovered.
Was it Griffith Street?
Yeah, Griffith Street, yeah. Approximately about a 10-minute drive away. We have recovered the car, and that's then when we discover it was a stolen car and was displaying, as we describe, as false plates. Presumably, there were witnesses to this collision. Yes, we've got witnesses from the collision and from the driving afterwards that you've seen. Plenty of witnesses have come forward and described what they've seen, but we are still missing the key evidence that is going to bring all this together and hopefully give us the answers.
This is an extremely dangerous and reckless driver. How can people watching this morning help?
The help I need, and I say I need, the help Susan and the family need now. I need a witness who can put the driver behind the wheel of that car at the time of that collision. That is what we're missing. This isn't about helping me. This is about helping the family now. And I need that witness to come forward. The community of Tipton is very close. It's extremely supportive. They look after each other. They support each other. I know someone out there has the answers. And I say that myself and the team need, but they have the answers that Susan needs.
Paul, thank you so much. Sue, Chris, thank you again for coming in. I appreciate this has been so hard. We really do thank you for joining us. So, do you remember seeing this vehicle speeding along St Mark's Road in Tipton on Saturday, the 27th of February last year? Or have you heard anything about who may have been driving that car? As you heard, Darren's family really need this person found, so please get in touch with any information that you might have. The contact details are on the screen.
UK.
First this morning, 12 years ago, teenager Amir Siddiqui was brutally murdered on the doorstep of his home in Cardiff. His family are still desperate for answers.
Amir was just a joyful boy. Just happy, just peals of laughter. Amir was very close to Mum and Dad. He was 17, and I think as he matured, he just became a very sensitive, thoughtful young boy, also with some teenage sensibilities. He's always doing something. You know, it was always an after-school activity or going to see sport or doing sport. So he was very rarely at home, and he seemed incredibly popular. I had a very brief message saying that there's been an accident, come home. So I arrived at the University Hospital of Wales. I went to the A&E where my mum was actually being seen by one of the A&E doctors, and she was just a hysterical mess. She was crying and she was screaming, she's saying, my son, this is what's happened to him. I later saw my dad, and he was the complete opposite, just sitting there completely silent in a chair, not speaking at all.
Amir Siddiqui was stabbed to death
by men who broke into the family home on Sunday.
His violent death confounded all who knew him.
His mother and father heard his screams and desperately tried to help him.
He was attacked by two men who howled as they stabbed him with daggers.
It was Sunday afternoon, and he was expecting the Quran teacher to visit the home. There was a door knock, and he opened the door, and two men came in with masks, and they started indiscriminately stabbing at him.
The attack was extremely violent and brutal in nature, resulted in Amir sustaining several stab wounds, as did his parents, really, in trying to intervene and rescue their son.
We couldn't understand what happened, why it happened. Why would anyone do this?
This afternoon, united in grief and shock, his sisters made this appeal.
We are worried, in our own grief, that the people who have committed this crime may do this again.
South Wales Police made an appeal for information, and we were just glued to the TV every single day trying to find out what happened.
It is clearly a hypothesis of ours that that Amir was mistakenly targeted. Amir was an upstanding member of the community of total clean character, and I can't understand why he was targeted in this fashion.
Within a very short period of time, two men were arrested for murder.
His father, Iqbal, and mother, Parveen, have been in court to hear the details of how their son became the unintended victim of a blundered contract killing.
The two defendants are accused of coming here to Amir's home in a leafy Cardiff suburb, having been promised cash to carry out a contract killing. But they got the wrong address.
Two men were subsequently convicted for Amir's murder, and they continued to serve 40 years each, which I think represents the magnitude and severity of the incident.
Jason Richards and Ben Hope were two small-scale criminals who were essentially drug addicts, and they broke the sanctity of our family home.
For the police, whilst it's satisfying that 2 men have been convicted for Amir's murder, there remains a third person who's wanted in connection with that murder, and that's Muhammad Ali Edge. And our focus continues to be on tracing Muhammad Ali Edge and returning him to the UK.
I think it'll be the final piece of the jigsaw, and we could just put this sorry saga and heartbreak to rest and finally move on as a family.
I'm joined now by DCI Paul Rakes from South Wales Police, who is the senior investigating officer leading on this case. It really was a brutal attack. It sent shockwaves through the community, didn't it?
It really did. Amir was just 17 years old in 2010 when he was attacked in his home address. Amir was at home with his parents that day when he answered the door, believing it to be his Quran teacher. But instead, he was met by 2 masked men with weapons. Sadly, Amir died as a result of his injuries. His parents, who intervened and tried to save their son, also sustained serious injuries.
It is truly horrific. And as part of the initial investigation, 2 people were identified and being convicted, but that is not the end of the story, is it?
No, it's not the end. 2 people have been convicted for Amir's murder, and they continue to serve lengthy custodial sentences for that. But we're looking for a third person wanted in connection with that murder, and that person is Muhammad Ali Edge. Muhammad Ali Edge was born in Dubai in October 1977 and later settled in Wales. His current whereabouts are unknown, and it's quite possible that he's going by different names or using other identities.
OK, and you've been looking for him since 2010. He's an evasive character, isn't he? He could be in many places.
He could be. We first went to arrest him in 2010, but he'd fled the UK before we had opportunity to do so. We then appealed for information, and he was located in India in 2011 and arrested on conspiracy to murder. Unfortunately, he escaped custody in India in 2017 whilst awaiting extradition to the UK. However, we continue to work closely with the National Crime Agency and other law enforcement agencies to locate Muhammad Ali Edge and bring him back to the UK.
Okay. What would you say to anyone who's watching this that does have some information about where he might be, or in fact, if he's watching himself?
Well, I'm quite conscious that allegiances change over time, as do loyalties. And I'm sure that there are people out there who have information that can help us locate Muhammad Ali Edge. 12 years is a long time to be on the run, looking over your shoulder. And my message to Muhammad Ali Edge would be, if you think this is going to go away, it's not.
Exactly.
We're as committed as ever to locating him and bringing him back to the UK and bringing justice for the family of Amir.
Yeah, just because time's passed doesn't mean you're going to stop. You will keep on going until you have him. What impact has this had on Amir's family?
Understandably, this has had a devastating impact upon Amir's family. For his parents, who witnessed the assault and were injured themselves, they've lost their only son. For his sisters, whom he's a much cherished brother, they've lost him too. Amir was just 17, as I said, and had his whole life ahead of him, and all that has been cruelly taken away from him.
And the family's even had to move away from the area as a result of these awful memories of what happened.
They have. The family have not been able to move on. Life has stood still for them. And whilst Cardiff holds some very cherished memories for them in relation to Amir, they've not been able to settle since and have since moved away from the area.
Yeah, it is absolutely horrific. Paul, thank you for joining us today. Listen, if you have any information that could be of relevance, if you've seen Muhammad Ali Edge, if you think you know where he may be, your information could be crucial to this investigation. So please do get in touch.
In Thames Valley are appealing for information after an incident of sexual assault occurred in a nightclub in Oxford. On the night of Thursday, the 12th of May this year, a 21-year-old female was dancing with her friends in Plush nightclub between the hours of 1 and 1:30 in the morning. The female had gone to the bar and was stood waiting when a male approached her and proceeded to touch her breast over her clothing. The victim pushed the male off before returning to her friends on the dance floor. The 21-year-old tells her friends what had happened, but they decide to move on with their evening and carry on dancing. Now, we have some CCTV from the nightclub showing a male that we think may have information relating to the incident from the bar. The victim later returns to the bar where the same male approaches her again. He puts his arms around her and runs his hands down her chest, breasts and across her hips. The victim pushes him off again, but this time goes with her friends to the bouncers on duty at the club and a patrolling police officer to whom she reports the assaults. Reading from the victim impact statement, it says, "The incident made me feel uncomfortable and unpleasant. I was in shock that a man feels like it's acceptable to physically touch someone without consent." Thames Valley Police are appealing to anyone who was in Plush nightclub during the evening of the 12th of May or anyone that may recognise the male from the CCTV. Text, the details are on the screen.
First, though, it's a terrifying stranger attack that took the life of a young father. Detectives believe they have the DNA of the man responsible, but they still need to match it to a name. So, can you help?
He was the best father. He used to always bring me everywhere I wanted to go. He used to love his boxing, loves his music.
You're going to be a really good boy for Mummy and Daddy.
Ricky Smith and his partner Anita were devoted parents.
To go to sleep straight away.
On Friday, October the 3rd, 1997, they were having their first night out together since the birth of their second child. Whilst a relative babysat, they went to their local pub, the Tut and Shive in Highbury. At closing time, the couple left to get some food. Their journey took them along Highbury Park.
He stabbed me!
Help! Help! Stop it! There's someone being stabbed in the street, and he's laying down in the street.
I picked up the phone, and a young girl, she says, your son Ricky's on the floor. He's been stabbed.
I remember my aunt was babysitting, and she woke me up and she said, "Something's happened to your dad. He's in hospital." I always thought he'd come back, but as the years go on, you realise, because he was the first person ever close to me to die.
Next, we're going to show you something that happened last October. It's a street crime in Highbury.
Detectives appealed for information, but it wasn't until 10 years later that they finally made a significant breakthrough and discovered that Ricky Smith wasn't the only victim of his attacker that night. At 9 p.m, 7 miles away in Kensal Green, North London, 21-year-old Juan Marais was leaving the Tube and heading to a friend's barbecue.
I stopped to ask for directions to this person, and the person just said, "No, sorry."
Have you got the time?
As I looked down to see what the time was, I felt like I was getting punched. But actually I was getting stabbed.
Someone is stepping outside, and he's near to his chest. And is the person who done it still there? No, I can't see him now.
I think the diaphragm was hit, punctured, lung, 2 stab wounds, one missed the heart basically with a centimetre.
In 2008, thanks to forensic advances, detectives could confirm that the 2 stabbings were committed by the same man. but they still had no leads on who this man might be. Investigating officer Will Reynolds has been re-examining the case.
The man responsible was described by witnesses as a tall, black male between 25 and 35 years old, wearing a Chicago Bulls jacket, which is a basketball team. The jacket has a significant logo on it, which is very recognizable, and also a baseball cap. This man was also described as being present at the time that Ricky Smith was attacked.
After the attack on Ricky, the distinctive Chicago Bulls jacket and baseball cap were dumped in a nearby front garden. The next morning, a young man knocked on the door and asked about the clothing.
Hi, have you found the bag?
Yeah, we gave it to the police last night.
We don't believe that this person is the offender based on the description the lady gives of him. He is much younger, he's not the same build, and he was wearing very, very different clothing and spoke differently. We've made a number of appeals to try and find out who he is. We believe he's local because when he spoke to the lady, he said he was on his way home. He is absolutely crucial to find, to understand what he saw on that night.
25 years on, detectives are still hopeful of a breakthrough.
We now have recovered samples from that clothing. There is a DNA sample which is common to both crime scenes. If we can match it to an individual, we stand a very good chance of making a significant breakthrough in this investigation. Our favoured theory is that the offender committed both attacks that night, and we feel as a result they decided to leave the country. Me and my team are absolutely committed to solving this homicide, to bringing an answer to the family of Ricky Smith, and also to one.
We can't rest without him being caught. He's messed so many lives up, so many people's lives.
It's been horrible for my brother too, because he's never got the chance to meet my dad. I still have them memories, what my brother don't have, but you can see how much it really hurts him and stuff.
We just got to get him. We have got to get him. It's terrible that he's still walking the streets. He's got to be caught.
Well, we're joined now by DI Will Reynolds from the Met Police and by Jean Marais, who was that second victim of that night. Thank you both for joining us today. Jean, if I just start with yourself, how have you coped with these last 25 years after what happened to you?
Yes, the memories of that attack will be with me forever, and remember it clearly. And just with family support, and lucky to be alive, if you think, you know, Ricky wasn't that lucky. And yeah, not an easy
Incredibly tough. I can't even imagine what it's been like for you. But when did you learn that you were not the only victim that night?
It was many years after that. You know, they've linked the two cases due to DNA, and yeah, it made me even realise how lucky I am that there was a murder that same night by the same person, and yeah, all of a reason to someone to come forward and possibly identify.
Let's hope so, Jean. Thank you. Well, let's start by saying, I know you're keen to stress that this type of attack is incredibly rare.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. And also a double stranger attack such as this is even rarer. We have two men who've been attacked in two different locations in North London, approximately 2 hours apart, but we have the same person responsible. It's been very difficult to try and solve it because we don't know why the attacks took place, but we do feel that we're close to a significant breakthrough now.
OK, well, what we're going to do, well, we've got a map here because this is the route you believe the attacker took after Ricky's stabbing. And on this route, the police have made some significant discoveries. Talk us through what's happening here.
That's right. Highbury Park was the attack on Ricky Smith, but we know the offender ditched some clothing in Conewood Street, and this was significant clothing that he was wearing. It was described as a Chicago Bulls jacket, which has a very recognisable logo and also a blue Reebok baseball cap. Now, they were put into a front garden wrapped in plastic bags, but the occupier found them and handed them to police.
Then, of significance, someone actually came shortly afterwards.
That's right. The following day in the morning, a man called at the address asking after these items. Now, we don't think he is the offender. We think he's a critical witness who has seen something, and we are asking him to come forward. He said he would at the time, but 25 years later, he hasn't. It's still not too late.
No, he could, of course, be crucial to the investigation. Now, not far from where these items were discovered, there was another discovery, a knife. Talk us through this.
That's right. We found the knife that we know was used in both attacks in a garden close by in Albert Park. It's a distinctive lock knife with a £9.95 label, and through previous appeals we've established it was bought in a shop in Burnt Oak, which again is in North London. So our offender clearly has links to all these areas.
OK, now, you've got a description of the attacker. Give us that.
Yeah, from witnesses, the attacker's described as a black male. He spoke with a West Indian accent. He's tall, over 6 foot, slim, athletic build, and wearing those distinctive clothing items, the Chicago Bulls jacket and also the Reebok baseball cap.
Now, at the time, there was an age given for him, 25 to 35, but now, of course, now the person will be so much older.
Yeah, he would be significantly older, so we'd expect him to be in his 50s or 60s now, so that's correct.
Now, that's the physical description, but you've also managed to build up a profile of the person you want to identify.
Yeah, we believe the person has certain characteristics, and that would be they clearly are violent. They're clearly prone to unprovoked bouts of violence. Unfortunately, they carried a knife, comfortable using it, prepared to use it, and more importantly, they must have had links to Kensal Green, where the first attack was, and in Highbury, where the second attack was. So, and we believe that they left the country shortly afterwards.
OK, now, crucially, you have got some DNA evidence, and that can be used to help prove or disprove anyone that was involved. This is significant to the investigation.
Yeah, absolutely. This is part of potentially our significant breakthrough. If we can identify or match this DNA to an individual, that would really, really help the investigation. There is a reason potentially why we've not matched it after 25 years. It could be that this person has died shortly after committing the attacks, or they stayed in the country but never reoffended, but we think that's unlikely. Our favoured theory is that this person committed these attacks and left the country shortly afterwards, disappeared, vanished without telling anyone where he was going and never returned.
OK, thank you. And Jean, I want to give the last word to you. It's been 25 years. In fact, it was 25 yesterday, 25 years. What would you say to anyone that's watching this right now that has got information about what happened but is yet to come forward?
Well, being a parent myself now, I know how important it is to get closure for Ricky's parents and even my parents. And if anyone knows anything, it's just how small it might be, it's crucial to make contact and help solve the case and bring justice and closure for Ricky's family, I would say.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you, Jean. Thank you, Will. Thank you for joining us. It's worth saying there is a £25,000 serious crime reward for any information which leads to the arrest and conviction of the person responsible. So, do you know or do you remember anything that could help? If you have any information to share, then our number is 08000 468 999. That line is going to be open until midday today. 14 years ago, we appealed for information about a rape committed in broad daylight in a park. We caught up with a detective who finally brought the man responsible to justice.
There were lots of people and people cycling up and down the cycle path. I remember seeing a mother there with her children and a group of teenagers. So yeah, it was quite busy.
On Sunday, 29th of April 1990, an 18-year-old woman was walking her dog along a footpath in Cheltenham known as the Honeybourne Line.
He had a weapon on him. It was quite a thick, sharpened stick with a nail in it. Looked very threatening. I just didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what he was going to do to me, but I feared for my life. And then he proceeded to rape me. I just felt worthless at the time, and it just left me feeling really sordid and dirty. I just wish I could turn back the clock, and I know deep down that I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. It's just going to haunt me for the rest of my life.
It was such a rare offence to have a rape of this nature happen in broad daylight in a town centre.
Police launched a huge investigation. They took DNA samples from the crime scene, and witnesses were able to give a detailed description of the attacker.
The victim described him as being in his early 30s, dark hair, slightly overweight. The stick was a unique feature which bound all the witnesses together. Without that stick, it would have been difficult to say that the person seen by witness A was the same as the person seen by witness B. The pointed stick helped us identify that this person was one and the same. There was a huge amount of press appeal around it, and a number of e-fits were put in the local paper, but without any success.
12 years later, however, in 2002, the victim thought she saw the offender in a local car park.
She recorded their registration number and contacted the police. The person seen in the car park, their DNA was taken, and it was established that it wasn't the offender.
The man was ruled out, but following significant advances in forensic science, detectives re-examined the attacker's DNA sample found at the crime scene.
We decided to undertake a familial DNA profile that will indicate that the person is either a sibling, a parent, or a child of the offender. On the national database, there are millions of profiles, and we will look for the top 250, looking for people who have family traits that are similar to our suspect.
Despite extensive searches for familial matches, the police got no hits. Thinking the suspect may have fled abroad, they shared the DNA profile with international police forces, and in 2008 turned to Crimewatch.
Now, here's a question for you. What type of person is it who goes to a busy park in broad daylight, armed with a homemade spear, and rapes a young girl?
Out of Crimewatch, we did have a number of useful leads, and this resulted us in taking swabs from about 25 potential offenders. Again, no luck. It was hugely frustrating because you know at the bottom of your heart that the answer is out there.
For years, detectives still hoped for a breakthrough. In April 2021, Detective Inspector Adam Stacey was head of Gloucestershire Constabulary's Rape and Serious Sexual Offence team.
People talked about this case ever since I'd come to the force. As an unsolved case, it was a hideous incident, and therefore, you know, it stuck in people's memories.
Out of the blue, DI Stacey got an email. A man had been arrested in Cumbria for being in possession of a knife. His DNA sample matched another on the national database, the one taken by detectives in Cheltenham in 1990.
To get this email, this news, this amazing bit of evidence, you know, as soon as we got it, we knew we had our man, and we're going to be able to finally, after 31 years, prosecute him, put him behind bars where he belongs, and get justice for the victim was just incredible. And we finally had a name. Paul Shakespeare. Paul Shakespeare lived in Cheltenham at the time. We know that, so he was local to the offence.
On the 15th of August 2021, the investigation team went up to Carlisle in Cumbria to arrest Shakespeare. They were horrified by his reaction.
I'm going to be arresting you this evening on suspicion of rape. Okay? No, listen. You've been linked via forensic evidence to the rape of a female which took place in Cheltenham on Sunday, the 29th of April, 1990.
When I saw the body-worn footage of the arrest, and you see the man who was responsible for this hideous offence, for him to be quite blasé about it, that was quite cold and quite chilling.
He pleaded guilty. He got sentenced to 9 years in prison.
When we spoke to the victim, her words to the effect of, I knew this day was going to come. You know, she'd not lost hope all through that time that we were going to find him. So she's borne this weight, the impact of the offence for 31 years, not knowing who this man is, knowing that this man is out there. I'm just hopeful that with Shakespeare now behind bars, that this will help her put it behind her.
Police have not linked Paul Shakespeare to any other sexual offences. However, if you do have any information relating to this case, please do get in touch. First, one punch in the middle of a busy London street left a man with brain damage as he made his way home to his children. Can you help find the person who did it?
England's footballers are on the brink of sporting immortality.
Take on Italy in tonight's European Championship
following a string of thrilling matches that have brought joy to millions and united the nation.
The excitement that built up for that final was something special and something that we haven't really experienced so much before.
It's coming on!
On the 11th of July last year, as football fever gripped the nation, Sean Thorogood and his partner Rebecca headed into London to watch England play in the European Championship final.
When we first got off the train, you could hear everyone chanting and singing, and the mood was really good. Everyone was sort of excited for the game ahead.
The atmosphere was the reason that brought us into London for it, really. One of our friends, Ryan, lives in London. We all decided to find a bar over in Shoreditch to actually watch the game itself.
The mood was very good and spirits were very high.
England took the lead really early on. Unfortunately, in Italy go and equalise, and it comes down to penalties. The spirits really dampened when we started missing the penalties, and obviously when we inevitably lost as well.
The atmosphere kind of went flat. No one was saying anything. It was just completely silent, and you could kind of hear the hum from the tellies. We were quite tight for time for getting the last train home because of the penalties going on so long.
We needed to get a brisk walk on and get back to Liverpool Street, back to the kids.
Sean, Rebecca and Ryan left the pub around 11:15 and went along Curtain Road towards the station.
The streets were absolutely packed, you know, there were people everywhere.
We had the phone out for the directions. I'd linked arms with both Sean and our friend Ryan. There was just the three of us to try and keep us together. And next thing, as we'd sort of turned, Sean had accidentally sort of bumped into another guy that was walking the opposite way.
Just a pure accident, bump of the shoulders. And that's what sort of sparked his anger, really.
We'd carried on walking. We could hear something being shouted at us, so we turned round and he was shouting after us. I remember Sean trying to talk to the guy and sort of say sorry, you know, he didn't mean it, and just trying to diffuse the situation.
It was then that the man approached their friend Ryan and punched him. Then he turned his attention to Sean.
I saw him hit the ground. The noise that it made was like a thud.
I just remember shouting out, "What have you done? We've got young children." Sean was laying on the ground. He had his eyes wide open and I thought he was dead. I don't think he was breathing at the time. And I was just calling out for help. These two came over and they cleared his airways, they got him breathing again, they got him in the recovery position and they called the ambulance. They were amazing, to be honest. When we got to the hospital, they took him down to resus and they said that if you need to call anyone, you should do it now. And they were concerned at that point. We didn't know whether he was going to make it. The thought that I might lose Sean and that my kids might grow up without a dad, that what do I do now? How do I tell my children?
I don't remember anything sort of for a period of 6 hours. So it was quite confusing then waking up in a gown really and with so many injuries and feeling so horrendous as well, my head just pounding. I had a fracture on the right side of my head. I had hearing loss in my right ear as well. I had sort of multiple bleeds on my brain. One punch that's done all the damage really. Ryan managed to get away from the attacker eventually as well. He had quite a nasty sort of cut and sort of bruised lip and busted knee, black eye.
Sean is doing amazingly well, considering. You do notice that he's a little bit more forgetful. He can be a bit more temperamental as well.
So she notices that I can be a lot more blunt, really, and less sensitive and emotional.
That is as a result of his brain injury. It's something that we've just got to kind of live with.
My kids were very young at the time, so I'm sure it was quite confusing for them whilst not being able to do what I usually do with them, being able to do the breakfast routine and little things that we take for granted.
I found it quite difficult to process what happened and what I saw, and I still sometimes have nightmares, and it still kind of haunts me a little bit. It kind of changes your whole outlook because you can see how quickly something can change.
The injuries and the brain injury in particular is permanent. I won't ever get back to how I was before, where people think that it's just one punch. Could end up being the kids not seeing them ever again. Whereas for the attacker, he's essentially just walked away and got on with his night and got on with his usual life.
It's an unprovoked assault that has had lasting consequences on a young family. Sean was punched to the ground on the 11th of July 2021. It was one of the busiest nights of the year and the streets were packed with football fans, most of who were out for a good night. Sean was making his way home along with his partner Rebecca and their friend Ryan. They approached the corner of Old Street, Hoxton Street and Hoxton Square outside the bar Shoreditch Bulls, when Sean accidentally bumped into this man. Now, as you can see, the man immediately reacted to the accidental bump and became aggressive, attacking Sean's friend Ryan before punching Sean. He eventually walks off with his friends, leaving Sean unconscious on the floor. Do you recognise this man in the CCTV? Did you see him in the area on the night of the Euros final? That was the 11th of July last year. The assailant walked away that night, while Sean has had to live with the lasting impact of this man's actions. Please do get in touch if you have any information. Our phone lines are already open. But first, we're in Essex to appeal for details about a terrible attack that claimed the life of 46-year-old Terry Leakes.
Northlands Park covers 70 acres of Basildon in Essex. Locals know it as the Lakes, and it's a popular spot for families and dog walkers.
It's alongside busy roads. It's used by everybody. We've got lakes that are used by fishermen day and night, children's play areas, and then there's a big green space. It's used by everyone from Basildon.
But last summer, this park became the scene of a crime that shocked this community and left police searching for answers. It was where 46-year-old Terry Leakes was last seen alive.
Terry lived in the Basildon area all of his life. He's been described by his family as a kind-hearted, polite man that would do anything for anyone.
At night, Northlands Park is mostly a quiet place, but it does have a reputation for antisocial behaviour. In the early hours of Sunday, the 11th of July last year, Terry cycled into the park. He headed towards the grassed area and travelled along the path where he was forced to abandon his bike as he was confronted by a group of men who then chased him. Unable to get away, he turned around and was attacked where he stood. As he fell injured to the ground, his attackers fled.
Uniformed police were at the scene within minutes of the incident happening. It's not clear exactly why Terry was attacked, but what we do know is it was a brutal and vicious attack. Terry fell. Terry never got up. Terry was taken to hospital that night, and he later died from his injuries.
In the months since the murder, the investigation has been piecing together what happened.
We know that Terry made a call after he was assaulted and when the males ran away. He called a friend to say that he'd been injured and where he was. There were fishermen there. The fishermen would have had a view across the parked area in the park, and where Terry stopped to confront the males, they were concerned for him and they rang round. So the first 999 call was made from the fishermen when they got to Terry and saw the injuries that he'd sustained.
Witnesses have come forward to help the investigation.
We've got a witness from the park that tells us he saw 4 to 6 males chasing Terry. It was hard for him to say exactly because parts of the park were dark.
But detectives need more hard evidence to track down Terry's killers.
We believe that Terry was on his way to meet someone in the park at that time. Exactly where he's going, we don't know, and that's what we need help to try and find out. I do believe that there were weapons used in the assault. These weapons are still outstanding, so we need help to identify them.
Police are aware that Terry had issues he struggled with.
He lived a chaotic lifestyle, and I think it's fair to say he had his demons. But that said, let me be clear, it's about justice for the family. And at the end of the day, no one deserved to be subject to such a brutal attack I can't begin to imagine how terrifying that must have been for Terry. But there was one of Terry, and there were at least 4 males chasing him. And it was a really brief but really, really horrific attack. So his last few minutes alive must have been brutal.
Really is a horrible case. We're joined now by DCI Louise Metcalf, who's been leading the investigation. Louise, it's a terrible attack. It happened right in the centre of Basildon. How have the community reacted?
You're right, it's been horrific, really traumatic for the community. The park is in the middle of a residential area. It's used by children, there's a park, there's a cafe, and by fishermen 24/7, so really horrible for them.
Yeah, understandably. OK, so we saw in the film there was some CCTV footage. This was of Terry's last movements. Remind us of what we're going to see here.
So we released this on the 11th of July, exactly a year after the incident. On here we're seeing Terry's last movements in the park. He cycled from the north end of the park. Shortly after this that he was murdered.
OK, so these really are the last known movements of Terry. Now, we heard there were witnesses in the park at the time, and some of those have come forward.
Yes, the fishermen saw Terry being chased and then the attack. Fortunately, they ran round to his aid. They were called 999 and we were able to get there really quickly. And some of them have come and given evidence, but some have not yet.
OK, so you are confident that there are other people out there who will know what happened. They may have seen it, they may have heard it, they may have heard of it. But these are people that, crucially, you need to speak to.
Yeah, absolutely. The answers lie within the community. We've made 13 arrests so far. We've had 4 that remain under investigation within this investigation. And what's crucial now for my team is that people come forward and tell us what they know, what they saw, to help us get justice for Terry's family.
It could be those missing pieces of the jigsaw that you need. So what are you asking for our viewers' help with today?
So, as I say, the answers are in the community. People know something. If they're not comfortable speaking with us about what they know or what they've seen, they can contact Crime Stoppers. And that will be anonymous, but either way, we need to know. We need justice, and there are people at large.
Yeah, we need to find out who's responsible. You mentioned Crime Stoppers. There's actually a reward as well. If anyone needs that extra incentive to come forward, that's been put up as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So Crime Stoppers, the independent charity, have given us a £20,000 reward for the arrest and successful conviction of those responsible. We're really grateful.
OK, so we need people to get in touch. Let's have a look now at the map of where this occurred. Can you just talk us through, just to remind people's details of the area, what it was like, in case they did know anything?
So at the top of the screen where it says entrance, that's where we saw the CCTV of Terry cycling through the park. He cycled through the middle of the park to where the assault sign is, and that's where Terry was chased and fatally attacked. Now, we believe that those responsible left at either of the 2 exit points that we've got marked on the map. So people in the area would have seen others running away, and they're who we need to talk to.
Yeah, we urgently need them to get in touch. And it's worth saying that although we're asking people to cast their minds back a year and a half, this was quite a significant weekend that many people will remember where they were. It's because there was a huge football tournament going on. England were in the final of the European Cup. The men's were playing Italy. The final was on the Sunday in the afternoon, and this attack took place on the Sunday morning, so hours before that. And you think that could be worth mentioning because it might jog people's memories as to where they were?
I hope so. I think it's a significant weekend for people. They may have travelled to be with family to watch the game. So I'm just hoping that jogs people's memory.
Yeah, they'll think back to where they were on that day and hopefully give you some answers. Thank you, Louise. So think back. Were you in that park that night? Have you heard anything about this violent attack? We urge you to get in touch, and the contact details are on your screens.
Our first appeal today takes us to London and the fatal shooting of a young man. His mum is so upset she doesn't want to be identified.
Wrong place, wrong time. Horrible phrase, that.
My mind puts 2 and 2 together, and I've thought about the worst, and indeed the worst had happened.
Alex, yeah, he was a very funny person. He was always calm, he was always relaxed, and like, he was that type of person that always liked to play around. Everybody liked him in school. He was very popular.
Alex was the most loving and caring child that one can ever wish for. We had a very deep bond, and he was kind of my best friend.
On August the 31st last year, 18-year-old Alex Ajanaku was at home watching a film with his mum.
He did tell me that a party was advertised on social media and he wanted to go in East London. He did tell me that he will meet his brother and friends over there. I think we just hugged before he left, and that's the last time I hugged him.
See you later.
Alex travelled to the Beaumont estate in East London and met up with his brother and their friends.
The music event was attended by probably 100 people. They flitted in from time to time, so it was never a constant number, but they turned up. And the event starts to wind up, so by midnight, the event is over. Our group of friends, which numbered about 7, made their way off, and they've come across a small roundabout, Campion Road, junction with Beaumont Road. And they have sat down and they've been chatting. A motor vehicle pulls up and there's a shout, "Oi." And with that, our group turn around and are confronted by at least one person with a gun. And they are shot at. One bullet hits Alex, and he hits in the chest. Everybody runs.
The group scatter, pursued by the gunmen. They manage to escape and alert the police. When they return to the park, they find Alex injured. An ambulance is called, but his injuries are fatal.
Life just stopped. Everything just stopped. It's like someone had pulled my heart away from me.
Police are searching for any information about the drivers of a black Kia Sportage used in the shooting.
We know that that car was on false plates. We know it had been stolen a couple of weeks previously from Chingford. It entered from one side of the estate into Beaumont Road, up to Campion Road, where it came in, stopped abruptly. The incident occurs and it drives off pretty quickly and ends up in Darndale Road, where it's abandoned.
2 days later, the Kia Sportage is discovered torched in nearby Walthamstow.
The best that I can do is to try and bring the perpetrators of this offence to justice and get some form of justice for the mum and her family.
We was all shocked. We was just surprised, like, how did that happen? Like, why did this happen? We lost someone that was very close to us and someone that we looked up to that was a family member, so it was devastating.
He's a kid that went to have some fun, like any other kid would do. And he was just brutally murdered.
Such a horrific attack. I'm joined now by Detective Chief Inspector Dave Wellams from the Metropolitan Police. You saw him in the film there, who is the senior investigating officer working on this case. Dave, thanks so much for coming in this morning. So we know that Alex was murdered over a year ago now. Just remind us of the details of that night.
Yes, Alex was from South London. On the night of the 31st of August, he and his friends attended a music event on the Beaumont estate in Walthamstow. He was there. The event was for later in the evening, and it broke up in the early hours of the 1st of September, so about midnight. Alex and his friends made their way through the estate, went and sat on some benches, had a smoke, a couple of them called for a cab, when a black Kia Sportage arrived at that scene. The occupants, of which there's probably 4 or 5 males, got out, and for no reason, with no warning, just opened fire on Alex and his group of friends. Alex was hit, and he died virtually instantaneously.
It's truly shocking, isn't it? It really is. We've got some CCTV. You mentioned this black Kia Sportage. We can see it in the footage here. Just talk us through what we're looking at.
Well, this is the Kia arriving into the scene. It goes down Leighton High Road and into Beaumont Road to the actual area where Alex was. The shooting occurs. It then makes its way at extreme speed through the estate and ends up in a place called Darndale Close, which is on the Priory Court estate, not that far away, about 2.5 miles. It's abandoned there. 2 days later, the vehicle is set on fire. And what I really need is anybody who saw that car abandoned at that time, on the 1st of September, or 2 days later when it is set alight. They may hold key evidence for us in this inquiry.
Yeah, and they might not even realise the connection to this case, and hopefully it being here today, it might just spark a memory and they can get in touch. Is there any other information that you've traced back to this car in particular?
Yeah, this particular car was stolen 2 weeks previously to this in Chingford. We don't really know where it went to between the 2 weeks and the day of the murder, but we do know that it picked up a couple of parking tickets on the Wrens Park estate. And what I'd like to do today is to appeal to anybody on the Wrens Park estate that noticed a black Kia Sportage parked in a place where it shouldn't be. It could be like a residence parking bay or another allocated bay, which made them take notice of it. Anybody with information like that, I'd like them to come forward.
Yeah, this could be a car that they actually walked past and didn't think anything of it at the time, but actually now, again, seeing this, they might think, hold on, that wasn't quite right. It could be
something that the people would continue to use in this 2 weeks.
Yeah, yeah. Now, there was an incident earlier on in the evening that you think could have some connection to what happened later on that night.
Yeah, this is the music event that Alex attended with his friends. It's in the street. There were a large amount of people that were there. It was largely peaceful up until a point, about 11:30 midnight, when a moped and a rider, pillion passenger, drive into the crowd at this music event. And they scatter. There's an altercation. There's a fight. The pillion passenger is dragged off and then manages to get back on, and they make their way off. Now, I'd like anybody that saw that to come forward and tell us what they know, because it's only an hour later that Alex is murdered.
Yeah, and it's important to note there is a reward now for information connected to this case, isn't there?
Yes, there is. There's £20,000 has been authorised by the Metropolitan Police, leading to the identification and prosecution of those responsible for this murder. So if anybody has any information at all, no matter how small they may think it is, it may be quite significant to us. Any names, street names, nicknames, we'd love to hear from you. They can phone into our office, or if they are unhappy doing that, they can go into Crime Stoppers, which is anonymous.
We heard from Alex's mum and cousin in the film there. The impact that this has had on the whole family has been absolutely devastating. Again, for anybody that may be watching at home that has that information and is yet to come forward, what would you say to them?
This is an 18-year-old boy. He's just starting off in life. He has no connection to this area at all. He comes from South London, he's out of his area, and he's doing absolutely nothing. His mum wants answers, his cousins want answers, we want answers. And I doing my best to provide the family with answers so they have some idea of why this happened and to give them some form of justice.
Dave, really appreciate you coming in. We'll catch up with you again later on in the programme. Thank you so much. So, is this car, take a look at it, is that familiar to you? Or did you see or hear anything that night that could be useful? Please do get in touch. The contact details are on your screen now. But we begin with a case we first featured in 2015, the murder of Christian Bagley. Despite the passage of time, police are hoping that new CCTV can lead to a breakthrough.
He was quiet. He liked to be at home. He didn't really go out. He liked football. He loved football. Other than that, it was about Lara, because Lara was his firstborn. And he loved Lara so much.
In 2015, 30-year-old Christian Bagley was enjoying life as a new dad, sharing custody of 18-month-old Lara with his ex-partner Natasha.
He just loved taking her out. He loved being around her. She absolutely adored him. It was always, Daddy, Daddy. Whenever he'd walk in, Daddy, Daddy, and run up to him. And they'd play. He just loved it, and she loved it. And then sadly that got taken away. It was between dinner and tea time. He'd come round to see Lara because it was Father's Day. And me, Lara and Christian were playing in the garden. He then took her to McDonald's. And then he was just playing with Lara. We were all playing. Yeah, we were just having a really nice afternoon. In the evening. And Lara didn't want to go to sleep. Obviously, she was quite excited. And he stayed a little longer, and then Lara went to bed.
She's absolutely exhausted. Yeah.
He said goodbye, and he said, I'll speak to you later. And off he walked down the road.
All right, then I'll see you in the week.
All right. He left there around about 10:30, 10:35 p.m. That route would have taken him along Villa Street, which is a public pathway that runs between the River Wye and the Hunterton Estate. And he's caught on CCTV walking past a property at around about 10:42 p.m. He then continues walking to Hunterton Bridge, which is around about a 5-minute walk. And that's where Christian was attacked.
Christian had been stabbed twice.
It was brutal. The speed at which Christian was attacked was very fast. Christian wouldn't have had any opportunity to have reacted because the attack happened from behind. Christian has managed to stumble from the scene back onto the Hunterton Estate, where he collapses.
I had a phone call off his cousin, and he just said that Christian was dead. It was just hard. And just unimaginable to think that he wasn't long at my house and now he was not here anymore. Even the cup he had drank of was still on my table, I hadn't moved it. And then I have to, explain to Lara why she doesn't have her dad here.
A young dad brutally murdered on Father's Day.
4 months after the murder, West Mercia police turned to Crimewatch for help.
This was a horrific attack, and there's seemingly no motive either. What more can you tell us about it?
Well, we know that Christian was making his way...
Police were able to identify 2 people seen on the bridge at the time of the attack and spoke to them as witnesses. But 7 years on, the hunt for Christian's killer continues.
It has been a difficult investigation. The speed at which Christian was attacked, the remote area where he was attacked that wasn't covered with CCTV.
But police have been looking again at CCTV, recorded a little further afield.
We've been reviewing lines of inquiry, as any investigation of this magnitude, and certainly this passage of time would. Ultimately, that's what's led to what I consider to be a new and fresh line of inquiry to identify the driver of a vehicle that was seen near to the scene of the attack on the night in question.
A black Audi A4 was captured on CCTV entering the Asda car park in Belmont Road, Hereford, at 10:47. The driver got out of the car and approached the entrance, even though the store was closed.
Now, that time is really significant because we believe that is the time, or around the time, that Christian is attacked. And the location where the vehicle is seen is a potential escape route for the offender. And therefore, the driver of this Audi may have crucial information as a witness.
Christian's family and ex-partner Natasha still hope for justice.
There's a picture beside my bed of them both together. And then one day I find Laura in the bathroom actually talking to the picture. She told me that she was going to buy a nice red shiny car. She was going to go and visit him in the sky. That was hard. That was really hard. There's no motive. I think that's why it's been so difficult over the last 7 years, and not being able to find the person who done it. It really just plays on my mind.
Well, I'm joined now by Detective Superintendent Leighton Harding, who's the Senior Investigating Officer working on the case. Leighton, thanks for being with us. We heard there that it's been 7 years since Christian's murder. The family is still trying to figure out exactly what happened. How are they doing?
Well, this was a callous and brutal murder of a young father. Christian's mother, his daughter and wider family have been left completely devastated. As you heard from Natasha's film there, it's been an incredibly challenging time for the family, especially his young daughter, who's been robbed of growing up with her dad. And 7 years on, they still haven't got the answers they deserve.
Yeah, it's really sad, isn't it? So take us back to 2015, 21st of June. What happened?
So that day was significant. It was Father's Day, and Christian was walking home, having visited his daughter. He walked towards Hunterton Bridge along Villa Street at around about 10:42 p.m. As he passed under Hunterton Bridge, that's when he was attacked from behind at the bottom of the concrete steps that lead to the top of the bridge, which is known locally as the Lines. And despite his injuries, he managed to stagger back to the nearby Charles Witts Avenue to get help, but collapsed. And despite the best efforts of the emergency services, he died.
Yeah, it was a really brutal attack. Let's take a look at the CCTV that we saw in the film. Talk us through what we're seeing here, Leighton.
So we've reviewed hours of CCTV footage and identified a vehicle that was seen travelling between Sainsbury's and Asda stores in Hereford between 10:35 p.m. and 10:50 p.m. on the night of Christian's murder. The vehicle is believed to be a dark-toned Audi A4 Avant B8 model, registered between 2008 and 2016. At 10:37 p.m, the vehicle is first seen travelling along Iron Street from Victoria Street towards Sainsbury's at Barton Place. It's then seen again to drive on and off the car park or the forecourt of the nearby Shell service station at Whitecross Road. The vehicle then travels back along Iron Street towards Victoria Street and is then seen again pulling up on the main car park of Asda at Belmont Road. Now, the driver gets out of the vehicle and approaches the main entrance of the store despite it being closed. And we believe he may have seen somebody else walking nearby and may have interacted briefly with that individual.
And it's important to note, isn't it, that you really want to speak to this driver because they could hold key information. They're not a suspect, but there could be something there that's vital for this investigation.
Absolutely. I appeal to the driver if they recognise themselves to come forward because they might have information that is crucial to the investigation. The location at Asda is of real importance to me because it is a potential escape route for the offender and therefore the driver may have seen something.
Yeah, now there is a reward in connection to this case as well, isn't there?
There is. To coincide with the 7-year anniversary of Christian's murder, Crime Stoppers are offering a £20,000 reward for information that leads to the arrest and conviction of Christian's killer. Now, I know that there will be people that have information in relation to Christian's murder, and I totally understand why they may not be willing to contact police directly. Crime Stoppers is an independent charity, it's separate to the police, and it's 100% anonymous.
Yes, as you say, you'd urge anybody to come forward with information. As we heard in the film, this has had a huge impact on Christian's family. Leighton, thank you. We'll catch up with you again a little later on in the programme. So if you do remember anything at all that could help find Christian's killer, the numbers are on the screen.